For those that don't know, baseball is really...
What?
Stop it, Rob G. Come on. Here's what they're saying, Rob. The goo cops are out. The goo cops, all right?
I like that. Because you know what?
I like that.
You know who Bob Clappish is one of the best baseball writers. Bob Clappish used to cover the Mets for the Daily News. And I mean during the 86 and the World Series and Strawberry and Gooden. He was really a good writer.
Okay.
And he used to use that term, goo, like if a pitcher, was overbearing and made somebody look silly, he would say, like, Dwight Gooden turned so-and-so into goo. And I used to just love that. So the goo police are out.
The goo police are out. And what they're saying, Rob, look, here's the backstory. We've talked about it. Baseball, hitting is way down. And the batting averages are at, the lowest since, I believe, 1900. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob G.
We're on pace to have the lowest league batting average in the history of baseball. That's where we are.
Wow.
Period. Which is incredible.
Right. When you consider that the mound used to be higher.
Yes.
And there was a dead ball era. And we're even worse than that. Strikeout rates are the highest for pitchers, I believe, at least like half a century.
We've seen Jacob deGrom, Chris, with a 0.62 ERA. And the guy we always marveled at was Bob Gibson in 1968 with a 1.12, and he's almost half of that.
Yeah,
almost half of that.
No, it's incredible. And so, as we said, the goo cops, the MLB officials are out, and they're saying that position players, obviously the hitters, are complaining that pitchers are using all types of substances to increase the spin rate on their pitches. There's stuff like spider tack and homemade glue and, all this stuff we used to hear about Gaylord Perry, Rob, the Hall of Fame pitcher, the spitballs and all the stuff he used to do to the ball with substances and what kind of board he'd have in the back of his pocket and all that stuff. So that's why they're saying goo cops, because pitchers, according to the position players, are using all types of goo to make the ball do funny things. The spin rates, they can track these things now. And for Garrett Cole and others, the spin rates increased tremendously a few years ago. Right. And then once they began cracking down over the last few weeks, their spin rates declined dramatically. So Garrett Cole, the ace for the Yankees, was asked about it, and here's what he said. It was ugly. Here's what he said.
Have you ever used spider tack while pitching?
I don't know. I don't know if I don't quite know how to answer that, to be honest. I mean, there are customs and practices that have been passed down from older players to younger players, from the last generation of players to this generation of players. And, I think there are some things that are certainly out of bounds in that regard.
What? Well, hello, is this on? Chris, tell me what he said. I need a translator because I didn't understand it.
Here's what he said. Yes. I mean, that's what he said. Have you ever cheated on your wife?
What day is it?
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, that tells you all you need to know. And Rob, I think I almost felt bad for him at a certain point because he said this has been passed down from generation to generation. And I've heard other pitchers you probably know some of the names too, Rob, who've been on the radio today and stuff and admitted it. And we're going to be joined by a pitcher later on in the third hour. It's who we got coming on? We got Mitch Wild Thing Williams.
Yes, who was a big-time star for the Phillies. Yep. Are you kidding? It was a tremendous pitcher.
We'll get his take, but you covered baseball for a long time, Rob. Is it your feeling that this is something that has always been commonplace?
I didn't realize it was at this point. There's always been, people in baseball, Gaylord Perry, Chris, was in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Gaylord Perry, that was his MO about he used to touch his hat and his back of his hair, and they thought he put grease on the ball. He used to have batters
on the bill of
out.
his cap, right?
Yep,
Grease
on that.
the bill of his cap. And didn't he have a board, like a little board?
That was Phil Negro. Phil Negro got caught.
Right.
If you remember, was on the mound, Chris. The umpire came out to check him, and he threw the Emery board up. You remember that, and act like he didn't have anything? I mean, it was in front of 40,000. Yeah, it was in his back pocket.
Right.
He threw it out. But there's 40,000 people sitting there in TV cameras, and he was like, what? I don't have anything. We didn't see.
Well, I will say this, Rob. I'm going to put some of the blame for this on baseball. Because apparently, and you've heard stories now of teams, like the umpires would not go and check if they thought the pitcher was doing something funky with the ball. They would only go check if the manager from the opposing teams wanted them to do it.
Right.
But the reason the managers from the opposing teams never told them to do it was because their pitchers were doing the same thing.
Right, and they didn't want it to be. We'll be there all day if you're going to check every pitcher seriously. So we got to do something here. And here's my other thing, Chris. And the steroid era, performance enhancing, HGH, whatever you want to call it. It was a big deal in baseball. We saw it with the hitters, and we saw it with home runs, and how many people were really using it and weren't using it. And to this day, I don't know how you're going to keep Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds out. Now we got this. Right. So I don't know. Is this going to be as big as the PED era and the steroid era as we start to peel back the sheets and see that someone's made a mess? Because you know what? This is where we could, you're talking about some of the greatest pitchers we're watching, Chris. Garrett Cole is as good as it gets.
They're some of the greatest.
No, right. The Yankees gave him $300 million. Hello?
Right.
Jacob deGrom. We think this guy is as good as it gets, Chris. Is it all legit?
Right.
I don't know now. Is it?
Well, no, you're right. There's a lot to peel back here. And I think it's this, too. Like, cheating obviously is bad, and you just want your athletes to be against cheating. It's one thing to try to fake a call or, try to, if you didn't really beat out a single, you try to act like you did, things
or
like that.
Videotape the other team's defensive signals. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, that's a little far. But here's the other thing, Rob. Beyond the moral issue of it, money is at stake.
No, that's
the thing.
It's a high-stake game, right? No doubt.
If I can go from being a mediocre pitcher to using something that increases my spin rate, and now I'm a top pitcher, that might be the difference between me making, $2 million a year and $25 million a year.
And Garrett Cole,
that's
Chris,
a heck of an incentive.
Wasn't that great in Pittsburgh, but when he went to Houston, became a stud.
And that's when I believe they're saying his spin rate increased.
Right, and there you go. So there's that thing, and that's how he got that deal with the Yankees. That's how he's making all that money. And
it's guaranteed money.
Guaranteed.
That's his money.
Yep. All of it. Every nickel.
I want to throw this at you, and the callers can weigh in as well. Here's the thing, though, Rob. If indeed, and again, I can't wait to talk to Wild Thing, because, you're hearing pitchers come out and say, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I was listening to the radio today. I can't remember who it was. Yeah, I always had something on my belt, a little Vaseline or whatever on my belt. And if indeed this has always been the case, spider tack, whatever you want to call it, then that's not the reason guys can't hit today. It might, I think a lot of it, Rob, is just the new approach to hitting. The launch angles and strikeouts aren't that bad anymore.
Guys aren't being sent to the minor leagues, Chris, for batting under 200. Those guys are staying in the major leagues now.
Right. So are they using these pitchers as scapegoats for, the fact that batters aren't hitting as much anymore and it's made the game less exciting? Like, that's another angle to look at. That's the thing. We have to find out how commonplace this has always been. If it's not been commonplace, then it might be the reason. And the spin rate suggests that. But if it's always been the case, then that's not why guys are striking out more than ever.